Hello, welcome to the Bowie Youth Showcase. My name is Elijah Bruce, and today I'm here with at-large Councilman Todd Turner.
How you doing, Elijah? Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, good.
So I'm going to ask you a couple questions.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to welcome you. Obviously, we're sitting outside of our city hall here, and so this is obviously where we do our business as the city council members. So appreciate you coming down and talking to me here.
You're welcome. Well, first I want to ask you, what is a city councilman?
City council member is the, kind of the legislative person for the city of Bowie. There's 7 of us. We decide where we're going to spend our money, how we're going to raise the money, and obviously respond to our citizens here in the city of Bowie to make sure they're getting the services that they require. So we're representatives of the residents of the city. I'm an at-large member, so I represent the interests of the entire city. And then we have members who are district members who represent portions of the city. And then we have the mayor who's elected citywide as well.
What does at-large mean?
At-large means simply that I get the opportunity to represent the entire city. Like I indicated, we have 4 members who represents 4 districts. And that's roughly about 1/4 of the city. City of Bowie is about 55,000 people, so you're thinking, you're representing anywhere between 10 and 12,000 people in a district. As an at-large member, I get to represent the entire city, all 55,000 people. So I started out when I first got elected, I represented a district, particularly the district that represents the new City Hall and the Bowie Town Center for a while. And then in the last election I ran for citywide, thinking that because of my experience that I could take that to other parts of the city and have an opportunity to represent them. So even though as a district member you represent the entire city, the interests, as an at-large member you have an opportunity to see it in a different perspective by going throughout the entire city as opposed to somebody who represents a district.
So what are the responsibilities of a city council at large?
Well, the responsibilities are the same for all the city council members. We have the responsibility for making sure that the government is run properly, that the residents do get their services. We're the closest level of government to the residents of the city of Bowie. So that means, for your basic services, whether it's your public safety through our police department, whether it's our trash pickup, whether it's our parks and recreation opportunities for those who live in the city, maintaining our streets. Those are the basic functions that we as a local government provide to the residents here in Bowie. So as a at-large council member or a district council member, we're making sure that those services are being provided to the residents. And if there are issues or complaints, that's another vehicle as elected officials. We reach out to our city staff. We have about 350 full-time staff members in the city of Bowie, including our police department. So we got to make sure that we're following up and that the residents are getting the services that they're paying their taxes for. I'm a resident of the city of Bowie. I pay city taxes. I want to make sure I get the services as well as any other member of the city to have that opportunity to make sure that you feel happy and that you like the fact that you live in the city of Bowie and you're happy with the services that you're getting.
So say if someone wanted a new basketball court built near their house, they would go to city council?
Generally, yes. I mean, we provide probably the larger recreational facilities here in the city of Bowie, where you're talking about, say, Church Road Park or White Marsh Park or Allen Pond Park, which is our largest park. We also provide, obviously, the ice arena, the Bowie Gymnasium. If it's an individual kind of playground or play area, it depends on whether or not we're going to do that as the city, or say if it's in a community that has a homeowners association, it might be their responsibility to do that. Depends on who owns the property to be able to do those things. So we kind of focus on the larger recreational issues in the city, providing opportunities for our young people like you who want to go out and experience different things and opportunities, maybe either playing sports or going to events and those type of things, to provide that opportunity for our residents as well.
So how would one be elected to city council?
City council is an elected position, so you, like anyone else, you have to campaign for it. In essence, we have certain requirements under our city charter, which is our governing documents, just like we have a U.S. Constitution. You have a state constitution. The city has our city charter, which is kind of our constitution. And under that requirement to run for office in Bowie, you have two requirements. One, you have to be at least 18 years of age. So a young person could run if they reach 18, which I don't think it's happened recently, but however, the other thing that we also have a residency requirement, requiring that you have to live in the city for at least 1 year before you run for office. And I think that makes sense. You know, having somebody who has some experience, knows the city well, to be a candidate, I think is helpful. You know, when I first ran for city council, I've been on the council now for 8 years. I was relatively new to the city. I'd been here about 3 years, about 3 years at that point. But I had an opportunity in my other positions to be able to know the city pretty well. And so when I made that decision to run, it was a little bit easier because I kind of knew things about the operations of the city. But I have to tell you, since I've been on the council, I've learned a lot more about how we operate and how that translates to how we provide those services to residents.
How often does the city council meet?
Our city council, under our charter again, which is our governing document, only requires us to meet once a month. As you know, the city council is not a full-time position, it's part-time. So we do get a stipend for participating on the city council, but I have to tell you that no city council member is doing it for the money. It's not the reason we're doing it. We're doing it because we want to make sure our community is what everybody wants it to be, you know, a safe, fun place to be able to live and to work and to have our recreation facilities. So, you, like any other campaign or opportunity to run for office, you have to run for it. So that means you have to go out and meet people. You have to talk about the issues that are concerned to people. And we're currently in our election cycle right now. We run every 2 years, and we run on the odd years to be able to not get caught up in some of the other elections that we have at the county, the state level, even at the federal level. So we're running every 2 years, which is interesting because it's a situation where you know, you're out there all the time. You almost feel like you're campaigning all the time, but that's good as well because you're hearing back from the residents about the issues and concerns that they have, and that informs your decision about what you're going to spend money on, what services you're going to provide. Because we're responsive, you know, as elected officials, we try to be responsive to our residents. There are some things obviously we can't do. We don't have that authority. So for instance, we don't control the school system. That's a county function. However, we support our schools, you know, by doing our Teacher of the Month, doing our Educator of the Year programs, going to schools, going to career days, you know, back to school nights, all those kind of things that say, you know, we're here to support you, even though we don't control the county school system.
So you said that the city council is a part-time job.
Yes.
So what other activities do you participate in?
As a city council member, obviously one of your responsibilities is attending that once a meeting. We generally meet twice a month. Even though we're only required to meet once a month under the charter. We do, particularly around the budget time, we do have extra meetings. We call them work sessions that allow us to go over the budget in detail, particularly for each of the agencies that we have in the city. Obviously, the other things as a council member to be responsive is going out to your civic associations, your homeowners associations, you know, your boys and girls clubs when they have activities. So that takes up a lot of your time as well, outside of the actual formal meeting that we have here at Bowie City Hall a couple times a month. So that, depending, you know, how interested you are in getting out there, that's one of the things that's a little bit different from being a district representative, because you have only a smaller part of the city to represent. As an at-large member, you represent the entire city, so you're going to more meetings, you know, and trying to reach out more to more communities and neighborhoods, so you have a better understanding of what the issues and concerns have.
So as a youth like me, how would you give advice if I wanted to run for city council?
The first thing, you know, it's when I do these career days or back to school nights where I have an opportunity to speak with young people like yourself and even younger, they always ask the question, you know, how do you get, you know, to be a city council member? And other than, you know, the campaigning and, you know, getting to know people and having to raise money and all that stuff, the biggest thing is, you know, getting an education. Because let's think about it this way. If I was to ask you, if you wanted somebody to represent you, what qualities would you want in them? You want somebody who's probably educated, right? Yeah. Who has a little bit of experience and knowledge, who has good ideas. Obviously, as a younger person, you might not have as much experience, but maybe you have good ideas. So And if you've gone to school and you've shown people that, you know, I've worked hard and had an opportunity, I've gotten an education, I've given back to the community. You know, I know in some of our high schools, at least in the public schools, you know, you have to do community service hours to be able to graduate. That's giving back to your community. You know, all people like to see people who are active and engaged in their community. So when somebody who's young and wants to make a decision to run for elective office, that's what people are going to be looking at. Well, what have you done to get to this point? Yeah, you might not have years of experience in that way, but if you have good ideas and the fact that they've seen that you have a commitment to your neighborhood or your community or your church, that's something I think most people are looking at when they look at somebody to represent them, because that's what I do. Hopefully I'm representative of the people of the city of Bowie in some form or fashion with, you know, my decision to move here to Bowie. My daughters have gone to public school here in Bowie. You know, and obviously I made a decision to run for elective office to represent Bowie because it's, you know, the city that we love and we care about.
Thank you. So, who does the city council members answer to?
Sorry, again?
Who does the city council members answer to?
Answer to? At the end of the day, we answer to the residents and citizens of the city of Bowie. That's why we have elections every 2 years. If we're not responsive, obviously they have an opportunity not to re-elect us. I've been fortunate that I've been elected 4 times already. It's my 8th year of service on the city council. So hopefully I'm doing something right to be able to earn the support of the residents. So one, you know, obviously we're have to respond to the issues and the residents who elect us. The other one that we have responsibility to do is other levels of government too, if you think about it. We're a city, we're within Prince George's County, we're within the state of Maryland, we're within the United States of America. So we have relationships with those other levels of government that have some role in whether or not the city of Bowie is successful. So in some form, by developing those relationships, we have that responsibility to them to represent the city well to the other levels of government to be able to make sure we get the resources that we need, because we can't do it all by ourselves even though we're a large municipality, probably the 5th largest in the state of Maryland. We still rely on the county for services, we still rely on the state for services, and obviously we still rely on the federal government for services as well. So that's kind of the hierarchy. One of the things I hand out at our career day, we have a flow chart, you know, with the boxes. Yeah. And the first one on top says the citizens of Bowie. So ultimately we answer to them.
So can you walk us through what occurs at a city council meeting?
Sure. Primarily what will happen is usually the week before the meeting, our city manager, we have what we call a city council city manager form of government. So think of the city council, since we're only part-time, we're kind of the board of directors, say, of a corporation. So we meet, we give direction, we determine the budget. However, it's the city manager who runs the day-to-day operations of the city as well as the city staff. So we hire him to be able to provide oversight and leadership when it comes to the services that we're providing. So working with our city manager and our city clerk, we'll develop what our agenda is for the upcoming meeting. And so that depends on what it is. It could be ceremonial type of things, or we're recognizing, you know, some community leader or a group because they've done something and we're giving them a proclamation or recognizing them in some form or fashion. The most important thing at the beginning of each of our meetings, we have an opportunity for the citizens to come in and speak directly to us on any issue or concern that they have. I think that's very important. A lot of people don't take advantage of that because it's an opportunity for you to talk to all 7 members of the city council at our meeting and bring issues to us that maybe we weren't aware of previously. And then in developing the agenda, it depends what the nature of the issues are that are before us. That could range from land use items that are being considered at the county level and we make recommendations on. It could be our budget adoption, as I indicated, you know, usually around May or June. We have a lot of meetings talking about our budget and where we're going to spend the money that we have and how we're going to raise the revenue and use that revenue. We have appointments, we have volunteer committees ranging from education to public safety to recreation. So we appoint people to those on a regular basis who want to serve the community as a volunteer. And then we could have any other number of issues that impact us as a local jurisdiction, whether it's a county issue, a state issue. For instance, One of our last meetings, we were talking about additional public transit service to the city of Bowie by the Metro WMATA. And so they did a study and they said we can do some improvements on our bus system. And so we heard from them and made recommendations about how we should move forward and ultimately how we can pay for it. So those are the type of issues that come before us. It's a wide range of things, so you get to be exposed to a lot of different issues that you might not be necessarily an expert on, but through the process of working with our staff, working with outside stakeholders, you become, I say, instant expert in order to make your decision, to make a proper decision. And sometimes it takes time, so we take a little bit of time. You know, we don't act on something right away. We get the information that we need in order to move forward in the best possible way.
So thank you for joining us.
All right. I appreciate the time, and what I would like to say is obviously, you know, it's a great pleasure to be able to represent the city of Bowie. You know, it's one of those things as being the closest level of government to people. People really rely on the services that you provide. And they've given me an opportunity as a relatively new resident to the city of Bowie to serve this community. And I'm hopeful that I'll be able to serve it in different capacities into the future as well. So I appreciate your time, Elijah, and hopefully as people see about this, we'll have some younger people. I tell people when I first ran for the city council and was elected, I was the youngest member of the council, and I also had the least seniority on the council as well. And now I'm no longer the youngest member of the council, and I'm now third in seniority. So it tells you, you know, and even in that short period of time, there's a lot of change and opportunity. And then we have to start building the next generation of leadership. As you know, as people who have grown up here in Bowie, who care about this community, we got to instill in you and others like you that we want to come back and serve, whether it's in a volunteer capacity with a committee or running for elective office. So I encourage you, you know, got to hit the books because they're going to be looking for you. You know, they want somebody who's knowledgeable and educated, somebody who looks and feels like them to be able to represent their interests. So, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. All right.
I enjoyed talking to you.
Good. You know, you didn't hit me with the surprise question.
Oh, yes. So, I'll do it with you now.
Yeah.
Being a Jets fan, does it ever affect your city loyalty?
No, thank goodness, because we don't have a professional football team in the city of Bowie yet. Although there were some conversations about potentially the Redskins coming near the city for their practice facility. You know, for me, it comes down to I grew up in New York. I spent most of my life in New York, so I've always been, as a little kid, since I was 10 years old, a New York Jets fan. So it's a little bit difficult. You know, for me, it's about loyalty. The fact that I moved away from New York and established a new life here. I have an adopted team, and you know, it does give me some little bit of reservations since this is such a big Redskins part of the community. But I've actually adopted the Ravens fan. I've always been an AFC team supporter. But yeah, even when the Ravens and the Jets are playing, which they are actually going to play this year, I'm wearing my Jet stuff because that's the team I grew up with. So hopefully nobody takes offense to that. But you know, it's about loyalty for me. And even though they're not a very good team, you know, I'm always rooting for the underdog. So maybe someday I'll be able to say, just like the Ravens were last year, to be Super Bowl winners, and then I can have the last laugh on everybody who laughs at me as being a Jets fan. So, all right.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. My name is Elijah Bruce, and this is the Bowie Youth Showcase.
For inviting me. I think that was the case. And their son here, who's going for a round of applause. I see my good friends, Ellie Marvin Holmes is here, and Dennis Brady on the Bowie City Council, and Geraldine Valentino, I think, is here as well on the Bowie City Council. And I think Peggy McGee was here, still is here in the back, my colleagues in public service. So I want to thank you very much. I'm also, I should say that I'm joined by my children, but really I wouldn't be here but for my children. My daughter Rebecca, you'll see on the program. Raise your hand, Rebecca. She's on the program later on over in the other room. So I'm here to really support her and mostly. And I want to thank Ms. Gottlieb, who's Rebecca's voice teacher. And I'm also joined by my son, John. Raise your hand, John. You know, when I look into my children's eyes, and I'm sure for our parents and grandparents or anyone who's had the good fortune of raising children, you see in them not only their future, their hopes and their dreams, but the hopes, the dreams, the future for all Maryland's children, and for that matter, for all of us. So one of the greatest rewards and certainly one of the greatest challenges has been parenting, but it's been great every single day that I've had an opportunity to do that. I do want to bring greetings on behalf of Martin O'Malley and myself, and I just want to say one thing about Dr. King, if I may, before I do that, maybe you've done this earlier in the program, but we ought to take a moment, if we haven't already, to acknowledge the passing of Dr. Dorothy Hyde and Benjamin Hooks, Baptist preacher, an attorney, a real civil rights warrior. Dr. Hyde, trained and educated as a social worker, dedicated herself, her life to each and every one of us, and was chair of the National Coalition of Negro Women, two real civil rights warriors who we've lost recently. So if we could just, if we haven't already, just take a moment in silence. So Dr. King, when we think a lot about him, and I'm not going to be long, because I know you have a fabulous guest speaker who's a historian, who's going to probably share a whole lot more than I ever could, but Dr. King, when we think about Dr. King, we often think about 1963, because that was a great year. Dr. King himself said that it was one of the greatest years in the struggle for Negroes at that time. He was Time Magazine Man of the Year. You remember the Battle of Birmingham, which swept like a tidal wave throughout this country as municipalities overturned their ban on African Americans in places to eat and where they could work and find lodging. It was a success. He wrote the letter from Birmingham jail. And 1963 is a year that we often think about. Most when we think about Dr. King. But we should not forget that at the time of his death, in 1968, what he was fighting for the most was the war on poverty. And he was fighting that fight not just for African Americans, but for all Americans. And often we wonder whether the goals of the civil rights movement have been achieved. There's considerable debate whether they have or have not been. And I think that if you ask Dr. King if he were here today, he'd probably say that we probably haven't quite gotten there yet. I think he'd tell us that equality in this country, that question goes far beyond the questions of access to the ballot or to institutions. We've been there. We've already won that one. I think Dr. King would say that the civil rights movement today is really about equality of opportunity and participation in society and the economy. And at the time of his death, as I mentioned, he was fighting a war on poverty. And today, there are 15 million people more living in poverty in our country than there were in 1968. And just as alarming is that the rate of poverty, or the percentage of people living in poverty, is also going up. And even more alarming is the difference between the haves and the have-nots. Unemployment is 9.7% in this country. Among African American men, it's 17.6%. I think Dr. King would say that equality of opportunity has not yet been achieved in this country. not when a African-American man who is similarly diagnosed with cancer as a white man is 2 times more likely to die than that white man. I think that Dr. King would say equality of opportunity has not yet been fully achieved in this country when, believe it or not, there are more African-American men who are under supervision in the criminal justice system, parole, probation, or incarceration, than there are in college today. So yeah, we've made a lot of gains. We sure have. We've got to look forward and press forward and build on the achievements that all of us have fought for. And I thank each and every one of you for that fight and for those achievements. I think Dr. King would say that our work is not nearly complete. So as we reflect on Dr. King today, and as we go on into our lives, we need to continue to ask ourselves, what is it that I can do to make that contribution towards that legacy that Dr. King and so many others fought for. It's a real pleasure to be here. Ms. Christian, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to remaining staying and hearing the rest of the program. Thank you very much.
Our next honoree is Curtis Crutchfield, and he's a native of Washington. He graduated from Howard University with a BA in radio, television, and film. And in the 80s, he was a radio reporter with WHUR covering local government issues in the Washington, D.C. area. He was a press officer for the Office of Prince George's County Executive. And since the 1990s, he's been the news director at CTV Channel 76. And he's responsible for producing the daily news show focusing on issues in Prince George's County and the state of Maryland. In 2006, he was honored with the Broadcast Catalyst Award for Cultural Diversity in the Workplace. And that elevated him to an elite status within his industry and among his peers in the broadcast industry. He's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, some of you might be familiar with, the National Association of Black Journalists, and an alumnus of Leadership Prince George's. So for his dedication in sharing information with the community, we honor today Curtis Crutchfield.
I'll be very brief on behalf of my boss, David Peaches, Executive Director at CTV, Operations Director John Berry, and the entire news staff at CTV. I thank you. What we do at CTV, it's about teamwork, and this is for everyone. And a lot of the comments have been made throughout the program of public service. And I got into this business, media. Not everyone is likable in media. But I got into media because I wanted to be of service to my community. And this award, in some regards, said what we do at CTV is a public service. And I thank you for that.
NFC, AFC, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks are all living united to ensure the academic success of millions of kids in our communities all the way to graduation day. But that won't happen without you. So take the pledge at unitedway.org. Make a difference in the life of a child. Suit up like your favorite NFL players and become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor with United Way.